Hello, Magic players and collectors. Welcome to the Land Library. I'm your librarian, and in this episode of Legendary Locations, we're discussing Three Tree City. Three Tree City was first introduced in Bloomborough, a set that came out in August of 2024. And I gotta start this by saying, I really love Three Tree City. It's easily one of my favorite Magic cards, and wanting to talk about Three Tree City was a huge part of my motivation to even make this channel to begin with. But with that out of the way, let's get right into it. Three Tree City only has one card, but it does have 5 versions of that card, the base version, and then 4 extended art cards, each depicting Three Tree City in a different season. This legendary land has a couple of different effects. It has the pretty generic and very common effect of tap for a colorless, but then in addition, when it comes into play, you choose a creature type. And then, for the cost of 2 generic mana and tapping it, it can produce colored mana of a single color equal to the number of that chosen creature type that you control. And although Three Tree City itself only has that one card, there are several related cards. There's 2 citizens of Three Tree City on cards. We've got Three Tree Scribe and Three Tree Root Weaver. Interestingly, both of these citizens are druids, and there's also 2 cards depicting what I think are city guards. We've got Treetop Sentries and Treeguard Duo. It's not like explicitly clear that these are from Three Tree City, like the 2 citizens are, but it definitely looks like it is. Like the background of Treeguard Duo looks like Three Tree City. Next up, we've got a couple of artifacts. The first is Patchwork Banner. This is showing off the quilted banner of the Quilted District. And then the second is a artifact creature, Three Tree Mascot, which is a mascot being paraded through while it's wearing the quilted banner. And last but not least, we have Calamitous Tide. This one is a sorcery, and the only sorcery on this list, and it's not like super related, but the artwork does show the flooding of Three Tree City, so the card itself isn't super connected to Three Tree City, but the art definitely is. And there might be a few others. It's not super clear if these other cards are Three Tree City or not. They could be, but I can't really say for certain, so I'm mentioning them, but I'm not really counting them. So depending on how you want to count the cards, whether or not they are or aren't, that leaves with either 6 total cards or 8 total cards. I'm not really sure if that's a lot or a little, since this is the first one I've done. I haven't done a ton of research on the other legendary lands I want to talk about yet, so I don't know what like the average number of cards around a location would be, but it seems like a fairly reasonable amount of cards to have about one location. Despite the plain Bloomborough having plenty of interesting history, Three Tree City itself is a bit lacking on details. It's not that there's no information at all, it's just mostly physical descriptions. But before I get to Three Tree City, I should talk a little bit about the plane itself. Bloomborough is a plane entirely populated by animals, mostly small species. There are a few large animals too, but these large animals are non-sapient beasts that are essentially just a force of nature that bring the seasons, so as such, they do not live with the animal folk in the towns or cities. The events and locations of Bloomborough are all set in a region called Valley, and Three Tree City is the largest city in all of Valley, and is a city open to all of the species of Bloomborough. Three Tree City is, unsurprisingly, comprised of 3 large trees, a willow tree, an oak tree, and a sycamore tree, with many little buildings and paths covering the trunks and canopies, and is built on the bank of Long River. Long River is a river running the entire length of Valley, and as it's running the entire length of Valley, it makes for an excellent way to travel and trade with other parts of Valley. Which leads us to the Docklands area. This is the main trading center of the city and is, of course, on the riverbank, partially resting under the canopy of the willow tree. Directly connected to the Docklands, much deeper under the willow's branches, is the Willow District. This district is, as far as I can tell, mostly residential for dock workers and their families, And being so close to the river is also quite wet, so is preferred by the more aquatic species like frogs and otters. But it's also highly likely that there's a bit of warehouses in this area since the docklands are the center of trade. You gotta put that stuff somewhere. And moving a little deeper into the city is the Oak District. The Oak District is obviously on and around the oak tree, and is more heavily populated by the arboreal species like squirrels and birds. There, of course, are many facets of this area. The main economic impact of the Oak District, as far as I can tell, is based around food and cooking. The oak tree produces many acorns, which are harvested, and its fairly close proximity to the docklands and the Willow District make it pretty easy to get a lot of imported goods like fruits and nuts, so there are a lot of bakeries and kitchens in the Oak District. The third tree, the sycamore, houses the, you guessed it, Sycamore District. This district is the main district for all the trades and crafts, and is a popular area for field-dwelling species like mice and rabbits. Windmills cover the area, being used mainly for things like grinding grains, powering looms, or stoking forges. Many of the material goods of the city, clothes, tools, weapons, housewares, etc., are produced in the Sycamore District. And the final large district is the Quilted District. This is the heart of the city, located in between all three of the trees, and is called the Quilted District because of its large quilted banner welcoming everyone in. The banner features sections depicting all of the different species of the city. This district is a lively place full of houses, markets, and inns, the best of what the three districts have to offer all together and welcoming to travelers. And although not technically a district, there's one more major point of interest. It's called the Crown. This is the highest point of the city and is often sought out by travelers and adventurers alike for its amazing view of the entirety of Valley. You can see the entire stretches of the region from the Crown. But as for events, there's only really one notable event in 4564 AR, which is one of the latest parts of the timeline. While Mabel and her party of adventurers were on their quest to restore peace to Valley, they visited Three Tree City, looking for information. But their visit was cut very short when Illuge the Shoreless Sea attacked and flooded the city, washing the adventurers away. It's not clear what happened to the city after the flood, but surely Three Tree City will prosper again. Three Tree City has had a pretty big impact on Commander, but not in Standard. It's actually pretty decent in a standard deck that runs some sort of tribal, especially while you're drafting, but you can't really break into competitive meta by only being decent. The meta at release of Bloomburrow is far too fast and doesn't have nearly enough tribal for it to keep up. You need at least two creatures of the same type to actually get any value from color swapping, which is usually a pretty low value to begin with, and three creatures to actually make a profit in mana. Decks like elves, goblins, rats, and saprolings get huge value out of Three Tree City, but they're not really played in Standard. And since it's a legendary and doesn't really have any reason or way to get discarded like certain others, Beseju, running multiple copies could become a detriment. Land destruction is pretty rare, so after the first one is played, any more you draw are most likely just dead draws. Which is part of what makes it so much better in Commander. Like almost every legendary land is better in Commander because that limit of one is pretty obsolete since everything only has one. But for Three Tree City, tribal decks are much more common in Commander. Basically, all the drawbacks it has in Standard are erased by just playing in Commander, elevating it from decent to really good. Three Tree City is a pretty easy A on the tier list. It's powerful, it has great art, it's one of the most strong tribal support lands I think ever printed, and I personally just really like it. But personal preference aside, it's not quite top tier, it has its drawbacks, and is mid to high level depending on format, which is good, but an S tier should be high level across all formats, so it's definitely powerful, but there's also definitely better ones out there, so A tier. If you've made it this far in the video, Maybe drop a like for turn and subscribe for more land-filled content. If I missed anything, got anything wrong, or you just have questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next legendary locations with the Seiju.